And here, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Happy Tuesday to everybody. And we're going to be doing Tuesday with Tom today. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about COVID-19 again, of course, going through the prison system. But after talking to Tom last night and some of the research he's gone over, Tom is starting to wonder if maybe COVID-19 is peaking in the BOP. And what does that mean for many of you if that's the case? So, Tom, I'd like to welcome you. How are you doing, Tom?
I don't have COVID-19. How about you?
I do not have COVID-19. I did have COVID-19 back in December, but I've been fortunate. So I apologize, guys. We were running a few minutes behind here. We're having some technical difficulties. Tom had to finish up a quick game of pickleball, and we're back. So, Tom, why do you think, and you know, take your time on this because people are still joining because we started a little bit late. Actually, right before that, guys, 2 o'clock today, I'm going to be doing an interview with one of our clients, Dr. Sultan, who is self-surrendering tomorrow to, he's surrendering where, Shelley? Lewisburg. He's going to be surrendering to Lewisburg tomorrow. So he's going to come on and share with us as his final moments, getting ready to self-surrender. If you have not sent the link, if you haven't signed up for our text messaging service yet, I'm going to send out a text message to everybody with the URL to where you can watch the video. All you need to do is text the word YouTube to 76626, and that's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern today with Dr. Sultan. It's going to be live. So definitely make sure you do that. Subscribe to the channel so you get your notifications. And other than that, yes, we're going to jump into today's topic. I see a few more people have joined us. So perfect. So Tom, tell us why you think maybe the BOP is starting to see a peak in this and what that means for individuals that are looking for some sort of relief.
Well, I guess I'll preface this by saying that the BOP has given us COVID numbers every day since late March, early April. But you cannot see yesterday's COVID numbers from the BOP. Nobody was aggregating this stuff. The Federal Defender's website was collecting it for a while and they stopped. So I took it upon myself to open an Excel sheet, and every day I update it. And the update, if you scroll back up a little, Dan, that graph you saw, just scroll down a bit, show them the graph.
Oh.
Yeah, that graph is based on every day's readings for the number of inmates with COVID-19. You can see we had that peak back in early May. That was Terminal Island, California. And then the BOP, the numbers dropped and dropped and dropped daily until late June when they started climbing. It, to a large extent, it matches what has happened nationally. But most all of the COVID-19 growth in the BOP was in California, Texas, and Florida. But you can see we've gotten up to the top, and it's wavered a little bit. We dropped one day, popped up another, and yesterday the BOP, and that's why I said in today's blog it's a miracle. The BOP decided that all of a sudden 200 odd inmates of the 468 who were sick at Beaumont were cured. Got a guy at Beaumont who sent me an email saying, yeah, all of a sudden all these guys without any kind of test otherwise were told that they were cured and they had to go to work. So it's a miracle. But because of that, the BOP yesterday dropped something like 7%. If it hadn't been for Beaumont, there were like 35 new cases, but the daily growth of a couple hundred a day or 150 a day has stopped. And I think just like we're seeing peaks everywhere else in Florida and Texas and other places, I think we're seeing peaks in the BOP. Well, that ought to be good. I mean, we don't want people getting sick. But in the world of compassionate release, it's not good. Because the BOP has had a trope going ever since this thing started. Anyone who applies for compassionate release, the BOP through the U.S. Attorney's Office files an opposition and says, this can't be. We have an action plan. We have 7 phases. We've taken, their favorite line is, extraordinary steps to control this coronavirus. One opposition pleading I saw quoted King I think it's Pyrrhus, Pyrrhic victory, who was famous for saying, "Another victory like this, and we shall be undone." The BOP can laud its victories. I was just reading a pleading today where the BOP was talking about what a bang-up job it had done in controlling coronavirus at Butner Low. Yeah, that would be the Butner Low, where there have been something like 650 cases and 16 deaths. And my God, if they hadn't done anything there might have been 17 deaths. I don't know. But the BOP will not miss a chance in opposing a coronavirus compassionate release to say that we are taking all these steps and, hey, judge, look at the numbers. The numbers are falling. We've got this thing under control. You don't need to send somebody home to make them feel any safer.
So what is this pandemic response report that you have looking at over here, Tom?
Well, that kind of ruined the BOP director's day last Thursday when the Office of Inspector General, Department of Justice, issued a report saying we took a look at the mess out at Lompoc. And what happened at Lompoc was you didn't follow the guidelines. You had sick employees coming to work. They were spreading the virus. You didn't test. And your record in giving CARES Act home confinement was abominable. Well, maybe they didn't say abominable, but that was the subtext. It's one thing.
Are they being forced? Are they being forced, or at least instructed, to take this more serious and start considering the people that do qualify for CARES?
No, the sad thing is the BOP Inspector General can't force anything. All it can do is say, we found this in the report, or in its report, and say, we found these problems. It would take the Attorney General telling the BOP, do it differently. The BOP's response, by the way, to this report is, we fixed all those problems anyway. And besides, they were CDC guidelines that didn't work as well as they should have. So, as I said in my blog post, it's not our fault.
And I see you have over here. I mean, you really sent over a lot of good information for individuals to see, because the next thing we're going to look at, Tom, is what you sent me is looks like there was basically somebody was challenging that they hadn't served the amount of time that the BOP says, but they were challenging it. I'm assuming this has something to do with a lot of the other high-level individuals that were released before hitting the qualification times.
Yes.
So let me share this so people can see, so as you can talk us through this.
You're talking about, yes, Ed Pawlowski, the mayor of Allentown.
Yes.
Ed Pawlowski was mayor of Allentown, Pennsylvania, followed at least the Eastern Pennsylvania tradition of corruption, got nicked for 15 years. He essentially was running a pay-to-play operation up in Allentown, the Fed said, and he was convicted of that. He applied for compassionate release, and everybody agreed that, yeah, he had COVID-19 at the institution where he was housed, and yes, he had all sorts of comorbidities, risk factors, and he was at heightened risk. But his district judge said, yeah, all that's true, but he's only served 2 years, and to let him go now would offend the sentencing factors of Section 3553A of Title 18. Those sentencing factors are the sentence has to reflect the seriousness of the offense, the history of the offender. It's got to provide deterrence. Well, that's sort of like the kid, the red-haired child of compassionate release. Everyone files for compassionate release and they want to show extraordinary and compelling. Well, there's the fine print that you're supposed to address the sentencing factors too. It ends up being a sliding scale. I can tell you, all things being equal, give me two guys who both are a mess, like Mayor Ed was here. I mean, the guy had COPD. He had chronic shortness of breath. He only had one lung. He'd had a lung cut out. So he was like the perfect candidate to get out. But he'd only done 2 years. If he had done 12 years of his 15-year sentence, he'd be at home right now. But
yet they've made exceptions for others, clearly. So
Well, the BOP
The BOP
has,
did.
and everybody gets CARES Act release confused with compassionate release. I had a guy yesterday say, well, I should be arguing that Manafort got out. And now we come to find out that Chaka Fada, who was a congressman from Philadelphia, just got CARES Act release. He had 42 months in, 60 months to go, and BOP sends him home. The BOP learned its lesson after Manafort got out. BOP tried to explain it that, well, sure, he had only done 27% of his sentence, but we have discretion we can use in some cases. Well, same thing happened to Chaka Fada. He had plenty of more than 50% left to do. Now the BOP just decided just not to say anything because anything they say makes them look bad. What it comes down to is the big time pals have gotten breaks, and people. I'm working with a guy now who has 48% of his sentence in. He's perfect candidate for CARES Act, and the BOP people at his facility, where by the way COVID's running rampant, say, well, on September 5 you'll be at 50%. We can send you then. Yeah, well, where's the Manafort discretion? Where's the FATA discretion? It's not there. But what happened to Pawlowski is that the district court said, no, 2 years on compassionate release. I don't care what happened to Manafort. I don't care about anybody else. That would make a joke of your sentence. And for that matter, your campaign manager got 5 years. He's still doing time. I can hardly let you go for less than 5. So,
and when you get a chance, there's a question on the screen.
Yeah, Tom. I see that. So anyway, the Third Circuit upheld that and said, look, you can't do compassionate release without paying attention to 3553 factors. Okay, question on the screen. Is it possible for nonviolent inmates to get home confinement because the numbers are going up? Yeah, the BOP is still doing it. The BOP is... as near as I can tell, and this is my own sense of it, so I can't prove it, but it's kind of good news. The BOP seems to be looking at this on a longer term. That hey, it's going to come back, it's going to spike again. We can't keep it out of here until we have vaccines. So, yeah, if you're nonviolent, I think you can get CARES Act. The BOP seems to be firm on holding to that 50% sentence date or sentence time for everybody, unless you happen to be a politician, then you're good.
And just to clarify, I know Robert, I think you're probably referring to your loved one, but others of you that are watching, if you haven't been sentenced yet, a judge can sentence you directly to probation or a home confinement sentence without going. You don't have to go to prison first. You would just bypass CARES because the judge would give you a sentence of home confinement if he felt that was necessary, which we do see from time to time. We've seen quite a few of our clients, and we just shared one last week that received 60 months probation instead of the recommended guideline of I want to say it was 60 months was the low end, and it just went up from there. So it is possible, but you got to put in the hard work and the effort. And that's where a lot of what we're talking about today is the individuals that are already in, but really the time to get started in this, if you're not already in prison, you haven't been sentenced yet, what you're doing right now could have a lot of influence, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about that at 2:00. So just wanted to touch on that real quick. Yeah. And thank you for everybody who's joining us right now. Bruno, Coyote, we have Robert, Sandy, Kyle, did I miss anybody? Tabitha gave us a nice elbow bump there. Appreciate you guys watching and tuning in, because this is what makes this fun and interesting. And somebody just sent me a text message. Tom commented on my hat. He's like, "Why are you wearing a hat today, Dan?" Somebody just sent me a text message. It said, "What's up with the hat, Dan? This is Harry Potter for you guys don't know. Any of you Harry Potter fans, this is a Harry Potter hat, which I just happen to like because I need a haircut."
I was thinking it might be a lousy haircut. I didn't know.
It is. That's really what it is. It is.
You made a good point, though.
I need a COVID cut. Maybe we'll do a live haircut on YouTube next time.
On the 3553 factors, which are used for sentencing.
There's a question for you. This is just what you were just talking about, kind of, Tom. I think somebody maybe you've gotten a little thrown off there.
Sorry to say, it is still 50% of your 100% time. We are not able to. I mean, the BOP
has 85% confused with the good time. It's what it might sound like in there.
Yeah, and well, we thought at first that the BOP wanted you to do half of the sentence you were actually going to do. We call that the statutory sentence, which is your total sentence minus what statutory good time you can get.
Right. But we're not including the good time. It's 50% of the 100%.
50 of 100. I do have some hope that when all the dust settles in Washington, by the way, on the new stimulus bill, that somewhere in there they've tucked in the provision that for the Elderly Offender Home Detention Act program, it's 50% of your good time sentence and not your whole sentence. Remember, that passed the House. That, of course, stalled in the Senate. The Senate wasn't going to take up a bill that just had that issue in it, but it's tucked into the House version of the stimulus too. So we'll see. There may be some good things that survive.
When is this new stimulus package? When is it going to be finalized? Do we have a? I mean, I know they don't. It's not like they're going to post it on their website, but do we have a general idea? It's got to be soon.
We know
right around the corner.
We know the Republicans are under a lot of political pressure. The Senate is to come up with something fast because everybody's $600 benefit for unemployment ends at the end of this week. So it's kind of got to be in place. There's got to be something.
That's a big sentence. We almost cut Tom's head off with that one.
Okay, I'm skipping.
Tom, you look like the guy on Tool Time, the guy behind the fence. Where you can only see the.
Yeah. Now let me peer over here. Scheduled to get sentenced under. Okay. The short answer is in the sentence, no. Angie, can everyone see the question, Dan?
Yeah, it's posted up on the screen for everybody, but feel free to reiterate because we get this. This is probably one of the clients. I would say this is a very common average client that we're comfortable usually based on what she's saying. These are the type of people that have been hiring us that we have high hopes for. And I'll let Tom.
I'm suspecting it's that miserable aggravated identity statute, that 24-month mandatory minimum that Congress thought it was a wonderful idea, and of course it isn't. The short answer is no, you can't get home confinement at sentencing. But the longer answer is after you get sentenced, there is nothing in the statute that says you have to get to prison before you can apply for compassionate release.
Well, hold on. She said she's getting sentenced under a 24-month minimum mandatory. So it sounds like maybe she had qualified for a safety valve. I'm not sure. Can you tell us a little bit more?
No, I think what she means is that she's getting sentenced and she faces a 24-month mandatory minimum. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And she wonders, can the judge go below the mandatory minimum at sentencing and give her home confinement? No. But the day after the sentencing, and wouldn't happen that fast, but legally, the day after the sentencing, the judge could grant a sentence reduction motion, which we call compassionate release. The statute doesn't use those terms, but a sentence reduction motion and change whatever he gave her to 24 months of home confinement, could give her time served and let her go. Yeah, that's
got to be submitted within what time frame again from the time she sentenced?
Oh, I mean, how fast could it be submitted?
No. You, I think you said in order for the judge to change the sentence.
Oh, no, you're right. We were talking about changing the sentence under Rule 35A, but I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that after she gets sentenced, she can file a sentence reduction motion under 18 U.S.C. 3582.
Which you need to go through the BOP first.
Yeah, you have to go to the BOP, and you might remember we had a nice lady out in Nevada who had that problem. And
so basically, Angie, we probably want to know where she's getting designated first, correct? Because you really want it to go through the warden. Is that correct,
Tom? It's supposed to go to the warden, but we have in another case, a guy out in Chicago we've worked on, Dan. We sent that to the director of the BOP because he did not have a designation. He still doesn't have a designation because on the first time through, the judge said, I'm really reluctant to give you this, but I'll tell you what, how about I extend your date to the end of September?
Right. So you have some options there, Angie, and there's a link in the description of the video to book a consultation, which would be with Tom Root and myself. Feel free to use that link. Consultation is completely free. This way we can dive in and ask you some additional personal questions that we would kind of need to know. And if you have a copy of your pre-sentence report, things like that, we would like to see that to kind of help determine what might be able to be done. But definitely use the link in the description, get your consultation with Tom Root so we can discuss your options for you. Got a good questions today. My son is at Coleman Medium. As of July 3rd, they're no longer allowed to use phones, only 3 to 5 minute showers per week, no access legal life. Yeah, I mean, that's the COVID curse right now. It's cursed the BOP. It's made camps and lows feel like, solitary confinement where you don't have that rec time anymore.
Yeah. And her son's in the medium, and same thing. I've heard that the theory behind using the phones is that the COVID can be on the telephone handset. The outdoor time,
horrible.
It's a miserable life form.
Yeah. I'm facing 6 months to a year. I've been on probation for almost 3 years. My sentence day is August 12th. What can I be? Jose, use the link in the description because the question, great question, but it's a very broad question that you just asked. Yeah. What you can be doing. A lot of things factor into that, and I would need to have a conversation with you, but there's a lot you can do. I can tell you that. If you haven't been sentenced yet, and everyone says, when is the right time to get engaged with, consulting and what really matters? Obviously, the sooner the better, but the more you put into it, the more effort you put into it, the chances of receiving the best possible outcome just increases, tenfold. And Tom, I want to do a video with you next week, and I remind everybody to watch this video because a lot of individuals, and I'll get to your question in a second, Yolanda. A lot of individuals, when they're hiring a consultant or considering hiring a consultant, one of the questions is, should I tell my attorney? Should I not tell my attorney? What say does my attorney have? And I tell all of our clients, I definitely want you to tell your attorney because there's going to be times down the road where we may want to make sure your attorney is okay with doing things a certain way that they may not be used to doing. So the sooner you talk to your attorney about it, the longer they have to digest a new idea. Now, however, many of you will ask your attorney, what do they think about hiring a consultant? And one of our clients that just hired us today said his attorney was highly against it. Basically, you're hiring an ex-con, all the things that they're doing, something we're already going to be doing. And I do believe the attorney believes this. I don't believe the attorney's trying to have any ill intent, but Tom, as you've gone through this from both sides, from being an attorney to going to prison to now doing what you do, you've been in this game a lot longer than me. I would love to discuss what it is that consultants, myself, you, other individuals, really, not today, but so people can have these questions answered maybe next week. The topic will be, what's really the advantage of hiring a consultant? What do we do different that attorneys are not doing? And how can what we're doing increase and enhance what the attorneys are doing? So how it blends together. So do you think that would be a fun video, Tom? You think we could explain some good lingo in there?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it immediately comes to mind 4 or 5 different points that are worth talking about in that. So sure. And
here we go. Here's Yolanda. What's going on, Yolanda? One of our awesome clients. I'll let Tom take a peek at that one.
Yeah, looked up. Beaumont is using CDC guidelines for a person recovering at home from COVID. I'm not sure where she's going with it. The problem I've seen is the BOP pays a lot of lip service to using COVID guidelines, but unless every inmate at a number of different joints who writes to me is delusional, they don't get followed. Correctional, the officers either don't understand how to do it or get tired of doing it. People take their masks off. So,
and Yolanda, feel free to dive a little deeper on that question if you want.
Yeah. I'll be blunt. I have not seen the guidelines for detained persons. I had a guy tell me yesterday that he just had a town hall and the warden was there and said that there are new CDC guidelines for prisons, but can't find them on the BOP site, can't find them on the CDC site. So I don't know. I'm not sure what new is. Does he
I'm
mean?
sending you my email now. I know you have it. I just posted it in the chat. If you have an email or a link you can send me that's referring to what you're speaking about, and you send it to me in the next few minutes, I'll be more than happy to pull up the email on the screen and let Tom review it.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting on that, we have a question here from Campana. I'm only gonna post the second part of the question because the first part's real short. I understand that the CARES Act you submit for home. Here we go. Let's jump into this.
No, that's not in the CARES Act. The CARES Act
BOP
has very little in it. It says the BOP during a time of national emergency can send people to home confinement without regard to the 10% 6-month limit in 18 USC 3624C. Because I have guys say, well, I had some guys ask, well, does CARES Act specifically exempt sex offenders? Does CARES Act require, A, B, or C? No, it doesn't. CARES Act left virtually all the discretion in how to carry out the CARES Act to the Bureau of Prisons. And the Attorney General told the Bureau of Prisons how he wanted it done. BOP then checks in and says, oh, by the way, you also have to serve 50% of your sentence or 25% of your sentence and have under 18 months left. So if you got a 30-month sentence and you get 25% in, you're probably down to 18 months or less and you can go home. Anything above that, you have to work your way up. And if you figure it mathematically, it's probably going to come out to be about a 40-month sentence is going to be the time at which 18 months ends up being something like 50%. But no, there's under the CARES Act, the BOP has said, but not consistently, that you have to have one of the more comorbidity factors. That young lady from Cincinnati we worked with, Dan, I just heard from her last night, and she has been turned down because although she rings all the bells, nonviolent, well under 18 months left, it was a 24-month sentence to begin with, she's healthy. And the BOP will not send anyone who's healthy, at least from the institution she's in. Other places, I've had guys who are healthy get sent home.
And the important reason why Tom's bringing that part of it up right now is many of you are going, well, why is she even trying if she's healthy? It's because when you start talking about things like compassionate release and what different factors can play into compassionate release, it's not just the individual's health in prison. It can also outlie to sick children, sick parents. You're the only caretaker. We've had individuals where a single parent at home and now kids are kicked out of school because of COVID and the parent can't balance going to work, making the money, and dealing with young children. These create reasons of hardship why somebody could potentially qualify for home confinement. So in a situation like what Tom's referring to right now, anybody that might be the ultimate reason that they need to go home, the BOP is not going to see that as a reason typically, and you still have to ask them first permission or get an approval or denial within 30 days before you can really argue where your hard case is in front of a court. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
That is. It's that hasn't gone away. I think when all the dust finally settles on this, when we have a vaccine and COVID is just an unpleasant memory, we're going to look back on this whole episode and see how the BOP's execution was very arbitrary. Depends where you are, depends who you know. It may depend on the case manager and how well the case manager presents it. And I think the same is going to be true of the judges. I know of one judge in the Northern District of Texas who has proudly proclaimed that he has never granted a compassionate release and never will. There's some
crazy right now in a time of, it's not just, this is the right thing to do. It's literally potentially saving lives, mass lives, not just the individual you're sending home, but that's one less individual to spread the virus around. But I guess that's a whole nother topic. And Cody, I apologize. I didn't see your question as I was scrolling down. I just went back to Cody's question. You got a THC question here, Tom.
Okay. Sentencing guidelines, they have a covered drug weight of 167 to 1. Probably the drug table converting it, the THC itself, to marijuana weight. Leading specialists do a report, say the conversion has no basis. Okay. Is your question what kind of traction that report's going to get? Depends on the judge. There are some judges who will, first, you got to know that reliance by the court on the sentencing guidelines is advisory. The judge doesn't have to rely on it. And the judge very well could say that, yeah, you know what, this makes no sense, I'm not going to follow it. And that has happened before with other guidelines. Most notably, judges who have refused to follow the guidelines on child pornography because those go stratospheric very fast. You know, some guy who's collected 5 images ends up with 15 years. And
you know what's funny is I was just talking to a client that was charged with one photo, and what they did was they took the photo, or actually it was a 3-second clip. And they took that clip and they broke it down frame by frame, and they considered each frame a photo. So now he's got this monstrous charge of, you know, whatever, hundreds and hundreds of photos. It's clever on
enhancing numbers go fast. And a number of judges in the Second Circuit, and actually the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, has said, if you think this doesn't make any sense as a matter of policy, sure, that's a legitimate reason for not following it. And some judges there have not. Sixth Circuit, on the other hand, says the fact that Congress specified it, even though it doesn't make sense, means you got to follow it. So in this case, the drug conversions, I would go with that. I would argue that that the conversion, if I assume this is what the specialist is saying, that the conversion is completely wacko and has nothing to do with the effects of THC versus that much marijuana, and the court should ignore it. Yeah. And I'd be prepared to suggest to the court what did make sense.
Guys, keep firing.
What makes sense is legalizing marijuana, but that's another issue.
Yeah, you know, and we are honestly, out of all of the drug cases, at least that I've been seeing since I've been doing this, it seems like even the older judges are really coming around to handing down much more of a lenient type of a sentence, even probation, where because there's people sitting in prison right now for life in prison for marijuana because nothing was retroactive when a lot of these bills hit. So we are seeing a difference in the sentencing. So if you got marijuana charges, you know, and that's all that you were charged with, and yes, you're getting hit by some guideline range, it says you should be doing all of this time. There is a lot of consideration going into that right now. So definitely have some hope. I wanted to touch on this real quick. Okay, Ted Dalton. All right, here, okay, so Campana, she's surrendering for under 24-month sentence. She's not looking to the 21 days in the shoe. I don't think you're going to be in the shoe. And the reason why I say that is they don't have that many shoes. First off, the shoe is special housing unit. Everybody that goes in gets quarantined. So more than likely you'll be in a special unit, but it's not going to be the shoe. It's probably going to be a regular type of a unit, but everybody in there is going through a quarantine process. You'll still have the computers, the whatever access you have. So it's not going to be like you're in some solitary confinement. At least all the clients that we have, most of them that are going in right now, we're hearing from them within the 2 to 3 days because they're in a housing unit that is set up for quarantine. That's why RDAP has been killed throughout the BOP, because they're using a lot of the RDAP units as quarantine units. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of peace of mind that you're not going to be sitting by yourself for the first 3 weeks of your prison sentence.
Yeah, you may want to get that sentence over with, but on the other hand, if you would rather put it off to a time when you might not have to do all that time, I'd say you want to talk to your lawyer, because there's no time like the present with the numbers what they are to suggest to the court that it would make great sense to delay your entry.
A lot of these individuals, you know, the problem with exactly with what Tom just said is I see a lot of, so when clients tell me like, hey, I tried to get an extension, I was denied. Well, we can log into Pacer. We can see what was filed. And a lot of times the request for the extension is so vague and it doesn't really explain any of the reasons. I almost feel like the judge is punishing the defendant for the fact that they had a lazy attorney or whoever submitted the request. Feel free again to give us a call if you would like a consultation on if you are going to request a extension. You definitely want to have some valid reasons, and you need to be able to think outside of the box sometimes. So give us a call. We might be able to help you with how you should prepare your extension request that your attorney can file.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that the judge is punishing the lawyer. The judge reads it and thinks this is perfunctory because the lawyer's only doing it to satisfy his client. We call it client amusement. The lawyer's only doing it for client amusement, and the judge will ignore it. But we can work with your lawyer and suggest exactly what needs to be done, and even give them some drafts of things that they generally find usable.
Let's see here. See what Sandy's got. Sandy's got, I have a fam.org in regard to prison reform is unable to guarantee callbacks or email response. Who can I contact? The sentencing attorney can't help post sentencing issue. Did I miss something?
So she's saying that she's looking for assistance on post-conviction, which I assume is not just sentence reduction, but may include a 2255 motion, motion for new trial, other valid post-conviction motions.
So what would you recommend? What is something that she could do, Tom, where she's right now hitting a brick wall, aside from booking a consultation? What could she be doing?
I was going to say, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but suggesting broken record makes me sound old, since nobody knows what that is anymore. But if she wants to book a few minutes with us, I'd like to find out exactly what it is she would like to, or where she'd like to
like what the achieving goal is.
Get help. Yeah. You know,
this is something that Tom, Tom does. That's why he's telling you this.
And we will not, and especially if you're looking at lawyers who specialize in post-conviction, I will give you some names of some people I really respect. It's not going to be a pitch that, hey, you got to buy here. There are some people out there who can. But a lot of it
about having options and getting, you know, the problem is what Sandy's experiencing right now is what we all experience as we're going through the system. There seems to be very little valuable content and information unless you really know where to look. And that's why it's so important to, as much as I don't want to every single day get ready and, you know, set up for a video and wear my awesome hat, putting out this information so you guys have access to an outlet of helping you come up with a better informed choice. So you don't just feel like you're narrowed into a corner and you're forced to do something because it's the only option available. So take advantage of the link. It's a free consultation, and Tom can definitely guide you in some wise areas of what you could be doing. Hope that helps, Sandy. Yolanda. They waited 10 days after symptoms cleared for those guys tested positive to tell them they are miraculously recovered and didn't test to see if they were negative. Most are still sick. I just read something from, I think it was a CDC said after 10 days now, you don't need to test. Did you read that?
No, I did not read that. Now, I know that Yolanda's loved one is at Beaumont, and this was the miracle I was talking about earlier. That's interesting. I don't know whether that's a CDC standard or not. I just know that when these guys recovered, according to the BOP, they all recovered at once, which I find kind of curious. Unless 258 of them all contracted it on the same day, it doesn't stand to reason that they would all be cured on the same day. But BOP will be the first to tell you that it's doing everything in an extraordinary way. So, but I had heard elsewhere from someone at Beaumont saying that the sick ones were being put back to work anyway.
Yeah, I definitely read it. It came across, I think it was on one of the news links that popped up on my phone, but it was basically saying that after you've tested positive, and you've gone past your quarantine or your whatever 14 days, that you don't need to retest anymore. So I'm not sure why. Oops. There it is. I'm not sure why they did that. So I don't know if that's what they're referring to or not. I'm not positive, but that's a good question, though. That would be something maybe worth looking into a little bit. Should I be designated to a camp? You're watching this, love, from the camp. Should I be designated to a camp? You're watching this, love, from the camp. Are you in the camp now? Are you watching this from prison, Campana? Is that what you're saying? On an illegal cell phone, nonetheless. I think they're at a camp, or I don't know. Yeah. Somebody might be at a camp watching. They're asking, which camp are you at? Definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what that question was. Maybe they're watching from a camp. But yes, guys, as Coyote just said, he's our hype man Coyote. Hit the thumbs up, people. Let people know. You know, the more thumbs up you put on these videos and comments after the video, commenting on the videos makes these videos be a little more available and popular for other individuals looking up similar questions. So, you know, as it says on the bottom of the screen, for God's sakes, community is method, people helping people. Share the content, everybody. What other questions we got for the amazing Tuesday Tom Tuesdays with Tom, Taco Tuesday, TTT, Tacos Tuesday with Tom. We're gonna have to have tacos next Tuesday, Tom. So get your tacos ready. I guess that was an autocorrect. That was a messed up question. So, Tom, what are some other concerns right now? Like, are we fearful? I guess to cut to the chase, are we fearful that if the BOP says finally numbers are leveled out, they've got it under control now, that they're going to be even more unlikely to send somebody to CARES Act? And will the judges start looking at these numbers saying, well, what's going on with the prison system? And if they see the prison system slowly declining, are they going to say, well, there's no need to send you to home confinement because clearly, according to BOP numbers, they completely have this under control? So should people be acting now, or should people continue to wait to see what happens with the numbers?
I don't see this affecting the BOP's processing of people under the CARES Act. Where I see where I see it really hurting is in compassionate release, that judges are going to be hearing from the government that everything's under control and everything's just fine. It's going to make them less likely to grant it, because they're going to say, okay, sure, COVID-19 is extraordinary, but there's no compelling need anymore because BOP has everything under control. I mean,
the iron is still pretty warm. And, you know, if you think you have issues, or you have a loved one that has issues, health issues, or, you know, compassionate release issues for outside, maybe caretaking for a parent or a sick one or children, the longer you wait, you know, many of us are convinced that this is not going to go away anytime soon. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe right after the election, all of a sudden, all of this kind of corrects itself and it's gone. So I don't know how long individuals should wait. I think it's definitely worth picking up your phone or booking a consultation to kind of get some more insight as to, because Tom's tracking this day by day. So he's, as you saw, he's got a full-on chart of the growth and decline of the numbers and populations and recoveries and how many people have actually died versus how many people are sick. And we see the numbers changing overnight sometimes. You called me the other day, Tom, and I think it must have been the BOP had all of a sudden one day its numbers dropped by like 30-40%, you said, in a couple of specific areas. I don't know if that's because the numbers really dropped or the numbers were skewed from the beginning. It seems to be the same issue we're dealing with kind of in the free world, where we're getting a lot of misinformation about what the real numbers are. So I think individuals have to act now before it's too late.
Yeah, the ominous number for the BOP, I think, have gotten up to 108 BOP facilities in which COVID-19 is present. And I tell people, look, it's best, I mean, if you don't have it present and active in your facility, it's going to be tough to win compassionate release. If it's there, you want to act now. And I told a few people I know in Beaumont who have been dithering, well, I want to file one. Let me try to get my medical and I'll get it together. I said, look, you know, pull the trigger. If you don't pull the trigger now, it's going to be tougher down the road. Is it, you know, 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now? I don't know where it's going to be, but history shows that the BOP starts dropping these numbers off. So it doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it harder. And under the old legal maxim that you should never dig up more snakes than you can kill, why dig that snake up by waiting and let the numbers fall?
Amen.
Got 105 inmate deaths. We're still over 4,000 people sick. We got record number of staff people sick, 405, I think it is, and 108 joints that have COVID-19. So, oh,
Man,
want to hit the X on that? Yeah, this is the final complaint I've been dealing with. Wall Street Journal last weekend ran a piece saying we shouldn't let people out because crime has risen and they're safer in the jails anyway, which is an absolute joke. ACLU issued a study yesterday showing that all the state and federal prisoners being let out, it has not affected crime in those communities. The crime has gone down either where they were let out or where they were not let out. And I toss that in just because you can compare the ACLU story. And Dan, if you want to hit the X in the upper, can you do that in the upper right-hand corner? Yeah. This is the article, Decarceration and Crime During COVID-19. Then I'd put another link up to the Wall Street Journal article, which is called... Tom
just scared the shit out of every camper getting ready to go to prison with the picture he just showed.
Oh, that's state. Yeah, things are ugly.
That's not where you campers are going, and most of you low security individuals, this is not what your living situation look like. Thank God.
No, it's still slightly better in Fed than it is in state, especially in places like California where they do stack them up like that. But I tossed it in as final because the Wall Street Journal on Saturday, its piece by some guy who clearly, you read this stuff, if you knew anything about what's been going on, his facts were skewed.
It's got a nice chart here to show the crime lower in most cities March to May 2020 compared to 2019, regardless of change in jail population.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that there's no, while you couldn't show a correlation, it certainly isn't correlated with increased crime, and that's what we care about.
Guys, everything we've looked at today, all of these links are also in the description of the video. This link I just happened to post also directly in the live chat, but every link that Tom is referring to today, you can go look at it in the description in case you can't see this if you're looking at it on your phone. So take your time. Don't worry about it if you can't see it right now.
I probably should apologize that some of the links go to my website, but I kept the historical, or have been keeping the historical BOP COVID-19 data because nobody else was. And for a while, the public defenders, the federal defenders, had some great graphics in their the motions they were doing for people. And
you're more likely to catch COVID at home, apparently.
Well, yeah, that guy's a clown. I'm sorry sorry for him, but he's a clown. Mornings when I open my Wall Street Journal, see something like that, I think, oh shoot,
yeah, that's real bad press, and why anybody would make such a, you don't have a choice in prison. You have a choice at home. If you want to be a knucklehead at home and go play in traffic and play in large crowds with people, that's your choice. In prison, you do not have the option to avoid people unless you somehow end up in solitary confinement by yourself, which most of you won't. So this guy is not really paving a clear narrative on this.
I had that come up in a case, and I was just appalled. This guy's in Birmingham, Alabama. He was in a southern prison. He's HIV positive, and those folks are very immunocompromised, very highly at risk. And the judge wrote in her decision that he was safer in prison because they only had like 3 or 4 cases. And if he went home to Birmingham, there were like 2,500 cases.
Such ridiculous. That's the problem. The skewing of numbers. Like this
Oh,
guy's
and
going to be living
we
with
demolished it
2,500
in a
AIDS patients.
reconsideration. I said, how do you want to do this by population? I showed that by population, there were twice as many cases in the prison as there were in Birmingham. I said, or you want to do it by square, by area? And fortunately, using Google Earth, you could figure the area of the prison, which came to like 1.2 square miles versus the square mileage of the home county, and showed that there were many more cases per square mile in the prison than there were in the home county. But I thought, what a ridiculous argument to make. It wouldn't matter how many more. If you're at home, you don't have to deal with people. And, you're not sleeping in a bunk bed on top of somebody you don't know. And you don't have people in the next, cube over where there's no wall to the ceiling coughing on you. And you don't stand in line for chow either, unless your family doesn't know how to run a kitchen.
Well, guys, we're right at about 50 minutes. I think we're going to wrap this up. Don't forget, if you have not already used the word YouTube to add yourself to our texting list, all you need to do is text the word YouTube to 76626. Our next video is actually going to be at 2:00 today. So in 1 hour from now, we're going to be interviewing Dr. Sean Sultan, who is going to be self-surrendering tomorrow. And if you go ahead and text the word YouTube to 76626 right now, in 30 minutes, I'm going to send out a text message with a link to the live video. So you're welcome to chime in, see what's going through his mind as he's getting ready to self-surrender during the midst of COVID pandemic. I think it'd be a really interesting video for you guys to chime in on and ask some questions about how he's prepared, why he received such a shorter sentence, how he's mentally prepared, how he's dealt with his family, and how somebody went from being a very wealthy doctor to basically living at home with parents, how he was able to digest all of this and still sound like he's on top of the world every day. Tom, do you have any final words you want to leave anybody with?
No, I just have to say I admire that guy, because the only worse day than the day before you self-surrender is the day you do self-surrender. Yes.
Tomorrow's going to be an interesting day.
So,
well, guys, I want to appreciate everybody for hanging out with us today. Again, all the links that we showed, they're all in the show notes of the video. Feel free to go in there. There's a link in there to book yourself a consultation with myself and Tom Root. You've got my email in there, my phone number, so you can find a way to reach me to see what we might be able to do to bring a little bit of guidance and support to what it is you're going through, and maybe even to the next step of actually using us on your side to increase the best possible outcome. So I want everybody to give Tom a huge round of applause. Thank you for joining us, Tom.
Wow,
that was a hell of a clap. Everybody heard that one. All right, guys, thank you very much. Join us in another hour if you got time. If not, you'll see it on the replay. I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. People up and people, communities method. Stay safe one day at a time. Later, everybody.